Good afternoon. You're watching True Blue on Patriot TV. I'm Steve Friend. This program is about doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. I want to talk about the American dream today. I actually want to reset, recalibrate the way that we are viewing the American dream. And look at some problems we're having with the material aspects that are normally pitched to everyday Americans about what they should expect out of this life and how it actually is part of a scheme to get you away from and decide against your better interests on what you really should be focusing on. Now, let's first talk about the material. What is the American dream as it's represented to us by our elected officials, by our media, by pop culture? It's living in the burbs, right? You got two and a half kids, white picket fence, couple of kids, middle class life. That is the American dream as it's at least represented to us. Now, let's talk about the difficulty people are having actually attaining that now, because people who have grown up knowing that, watching it in movie and TVs, seeing it around them, their everyday existence, it's part of our nurturing, not our nature, it's part of our nurturing. But it's hard to get now. That's just the reality. The status quo has shifted. The status quo is the status quo until it's not the status quo anymore. And I don't think it is anymore. And I saw this story that came from the Daily Signal. The Americans are losing hope in the American dream. Only 1 out of 5 voters believe they actually reached this material American dream. The lower 80%, this top quintile, the lower 80% don't share that perspective. 2/3 of Americans, according to this poll, believe that the concept of the American dream has become less attainable now as it currently stands. And 40%, 4 out of 10 of our fellow countrymen say that they will never achieve the American dream. And that's from a variety of different factors that we're all experiencing. And there is another takeaway today, other than my overall mission to recalibrate our view on American dreaming, is that people feel lonely in this assessment. They shouldn't. We all feel it. We all sense it. These are universal sentiments that so many people in this country share, but they're just afraid to express. Now, what are some of the contributing factors to this loss of hope? Well, have you checked your bank account? Or, I mean, it might be higher than it was a few years ago, but that's because it's filled with worthless dollars. When you print artificially trillions and trillions of dollars, the individual dollars themselves are devalued. They are worth less, worthless. And CBS News came out with this story. Americans need an extra $11,400 today just to afford the basics. The basics are not Netflix or Uber Eats. The basics are just keeping a roof over your head, having energy, transportation, and some calories in the refrigerator. And $11,400 roughly means you need an extra $1,000 a month to afford what you could have afforded just a few years ago. And this isn't coming from some conspiracy website or a partisan think tank that wants to push forward a political agenda. This actually is analysis from the US Senate Joint Economic Committee. They're using the data that the government has accumulated, which in itself isn't necessarily reflective of the reality on the ground, but we have to take their numbers so that they can come out with this message. Now, according to the US Senate Joint Economic Committee, average hourly pay has gone up in the last 4 years by about 13%. Now, according to the US Senate, inflation's gone up 17%, which would mean that you might be earning more worthless dollars, but you can't afford to live with the prices as they've gone up. They've gone up too much. And 17% seems a little bit rosy. Have you been to the grocery store? I'm thinking it's probably double that, 30 to 35%. But what does 13 extra percentage points mean for you on your income? Well, you don't have the buying power, but you know what it could have done? Bumped you into a new tax bracket, which means that effectively the government's going to take more of your worthless dollars from you. You might not actually net the same amount to be able to buy goods that are more expensive than they've ever been. And this new status quo we're existing in is not going away anytime soon. We've just printed too many dollars in the system. The Federal Reserve is not going to be able to bring them all back in. This is our new reality. And these are essentials: transportation, energy, housing, food. 80 cents of every $1 in additional spending goes towards those. People aren't sucking away money to go on a cruise in the Caribbean. They're just trying to feed their families. Now, this has resulted in an escalation in bankruptcies. People just have too much month at the end of the money. And that pertains to individuals and to small businesses. Small businesses, which every candidate for office in my lifetime always loves to tell you are the backbone of the American economy. Well, all of those small businesses are going kaput. According to Daily Signal, small business bankruptcies are up 61% this year. What's causing it? Well, you have inflation, which we just talked about, high interest rates, in reference to the Federal Reserve. Now, they just brought interest rates down by half of a percentage point, which is what you do during an economic catastrophe. But the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, has assured us that things are so great, that the economy is just trudging along so well, and inflation is under control, and employment could never be better. So he's going to take these drastic measures. It's a little bit schizophrenic. Could it be just to generate a sugar high right before an election? No, they're nonpartisan. Why would you ever expect that? But inflation isn't being addressed properly. It's impossible to address at this point by the Federal Reserve. And the high interest rates are making it harder for people to keep up with the payments, because we have a debt problem, not just as a country, but as a people. Now, moving off of the bankruptcy issue, more than half of American renters want to buy a home, but they fear that they will never afford one. We are a real estate driven economy. It wasn't long ago that we had a housing crisis, though, probably about a decade and a half ago. And that was when the banks were giving loans to people who didn't have a job, because they knew they would buy a house, and the minute they bought the house, equity would start to accrue and that house would be worth more money. So even if they wound up defaulting and foreclosing on that house, the bank would wind up ahead. And the bubble burst, and our economy as a country, as a globe, came crumbling down. We're now in the midst of another unique housing situation going on, where the prices are higher than they've ever been, and there doesn't seem to be a trajectory for them to ever come back down. And no one knows this more than people who are stuck in a rental. About 1 out of 3 Americans rent. 2 out of 3 own a house. But for the purposes of this piece, let's talk about that 1/3 of the renters. Almost all of them, 86%, want to buy a house, because renting is patience. You're waiting for different economic situations. You may be hoping for a job raise, or maybe a new job that's going to bring in more money. Maybe you're hoping that Jerome Powell will just be able to get us a soft landing and bring interest rates back down to zero. Whatever your expectations are, mostly people renting want to and endeavor to own their own house. But those renters are losing hope. Among the renters who can't afford to buy a home right now, 54%, more than half, think it's unlikely that they'll ever be able to afford a house. Why would they think that? Well, because home prices are higher than they've ever been. Because we hit a record yet again. The median home prices in America are now $426,900. And what is a median home price? That is the price of every house that is bought and sold, listed out in order, and the one that's smack dab in the middle. $426,000 is what the cost is. That's not the Wayne Manor. Alfred's not answering the door. That's a basic house in the suburbs for a regular American family, is now almost $500,000. This record shows that it's a 4% increase in housing prices in just a year. And people who are waiting and hoping that one day they'll be able to earn just enough of their worthless dollars, or Jerome Powell will bring the interest rates down just enough, they're not going to be able to afford that. Not on the trajectory that it's on now, because every single day that goes by, housing prices are continuing to go up. Not because the houses are worth more, but because the dollars that are being used to buy them are worth less. And how does this manifest? There are now 237 cities in America. Let me re-say that. 237 cities in this country have starter homes that are going for $1 million on average. What's a starter home? What's for young people? Sure, you just finished college, or maybe you're new in the workplace, you've been renting for a few years, you got married, time to settle down, start making babies. You can't do that from a one-bedroom apartment. Let's buy our starter home, 1,300 square feet, 1.5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms, maybe 3. Go to the suburbs, to a place that's relatively quiet and safe, a place where you can start to build and accumulate wealth. You buy the house, you get the mortgage, you make the payments, and in a few years, because most people don't actually stay in a house long enough to pay it off, you have some equity. Well, now it's $1 million in a not insignificant number of places in this country. In fact, in the last 5 years, the number of cities has tripled where the starter homes are $1 million. So which will mean that people have to continue to rent while they accumulate enough money to be able to afford $1 million house, which, because the housing prices keep going up, $1 million won't be enough when they have enough money. People can't keep up, which is why they're losing hope. We got a few other examples to get to, and then we'll transition into how this is playing out into a refocusing away from really what should be the American dream. You're watching True Blue here on Patriot TV, and I'm Steve Friend, and we'll see you after the break.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to thepatriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
Looking to give your wardrobe an upgrade? Well, look no further. Here at God Country & Kin, we've got you covered from head to toe, from shoulder to shoulder, and everything in between. Introducing our brand new Patriotic Collection, designed to display your patriotic spirit with a stylish look that's sure to turn heads. And the best part is, you don't have to break the bank to be your best you. Why wait? Visit us online or in-store today and elevate your style with God Country & Kin. God Country & Kin, where patriotism meets style. Shop now. Visit the Patriot TV store and look for the God Country Kin banner to find the perfect outfit, shirt, accessory, or maybe a great hat.
You can totally see yourself rocking this hat. I know you can. And check out all the great stuff we've got to show your patriotism at patriot.tv.store. Click that link above that says store and join me there at the Patriot TV store.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.
Welcome back. You're watching True Blue on Patriot TV, and I'm Steve Friend. And today we are talking about the American dream, question mark. first half, we were discussing how things are really difficult out there and people are feeling it. They're feeling depressed about their lot in life, and they should, because the system just doesn't seem to be set up to succeed. And the American dream materially is represented as owning a house in the suburbs, having a family and a car, and just those sort of accoutrements of life. You don't have to live lifestyles of the rich and famous, but just to live comfortable and well. I think another way to think of it is having upward mobility, the ability to see what your parents had, enjoy that, experience it through nurture, and then maybe take one step forward, economically, that is. And as a result of government spending and outrageous inflation and wild policies that as it pertains to housing markets and interest rates, people just don't have enough money to push the ball forward. In fact, there was a study done over at Unusual Whales, and I do like the title of the website called The Blubber. It's hard to say that without laughing, but they were talking about the cost of the American dream. Now, according to The Blubber, the American dream costs $3.4 million. Let's break this down. What is the American dream per Unusual Whales? Well, it's a traditional path of getting married, having a house, two children, not the Brady Bunch, just two children. And it's projected out over 18 years. And they do a pretty good job of breaking down what these expenses are generally. I think specific areas of the country are going to vary one place to another, but these are generally accepted in most of the United States. So for you to own a home with a 30-year mortgage, average interest rate, 10% down, all the things, it's going to cost you about $800,000. Two kids, bringing them up, not even putting them into college yet, two children will cost almost $600,000 over 18 years. You want to send them to an in-state school, you're not sending them to an Ivy. It's going to cost about 40,000, which I think is maybe a little of an understatement. Maybe those kids are going to junior college for a couple of years, but we'll take Unusual Whales math at its face. And then vehicles. You need a car for him and a car for her. Between buying cars and people actually financing cars and then going back and getting new models through the years, upkeep, maintenance, fuel, over 18 years, expect to cost about $250,000. Well, that all adds up to $3.4 million in 18 years. Let's crunch a little bit of numbers here that they don't in there. 18 years, $3.4 million. Now, if we don't have any of the inflation that our government has inflicted on us as of today, if you got married, bought a house, had two cars, and two kids, you would have to earn $180,000 to $190,000 every single year for the next 18 years. Now, how many Americans are doing that? And let's even divide it up between mom and dad, husband and wife. Can both of those people earn 90 to 100 combined? Most people aren't. That's far, far in excess of what the average household income is in this country, which would mean that every year you're not pulling down $190,000, you are falling behind, which is probably going to be contributing to the fact that more Americans are depressed than they ever have been. This was a rate of depression amongst Americans reported by Zero Hedge. Now, it's about 30% of Americans. Do we have an overdiagnosis problem? Yes. Do we have a culture of seeking attention? Without question. We seem to say that just feeling a little bit blue is something that we need to send you to a shrink and hopefully shove some pills down your throat so that maybe you'll be comfortably numb. That is definitely a problem. I recently was traveling and was in the airport and saw a grown man with a 40-pound hound dog as his emotional support animal. Didn't strike me as a vet suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. It was just a person who wanted to have a fur baby while he traveled. Sorry to get sidetracked, but I'm not sorry. If you are uncomfortable and stressed out flying, then you get to be John Madden and charter a bus. You don't get to fly. Back on track. 30% of Americans, 3 in 10, have now been diagnosed at some point in their lives with a level of depression. Now, how can this be connected to the American dream and our economic reality? Let's scale it down first. Who remembers prom night in high school and all the girls who, for weeks and months, were driving out of town to find their perfect dress that no other girl would have? And they planned out their perfect evening. And then, if there was any slight variation or deviance because the world isn't perfect, they broke down in tears. The limo showed up 8 minutes late. Another girl from another school who was all the way across the banquet hall had the same dress as her. Devastating, because they had an idea in their head. They're going to have the perfect prom night, and they've been thinking about it for the last 2, 3, or 4 years. Scale it up to a wedding. How many young ladies in this country have been dreaming about being a princess at the ball for 18, 20, 25, 30 years? And then you look at all the bridal stores and bridal magazines and catalogs that basically tell these young ladies that unless they have the perfect hue of decorations that match the bridesmaids' dresses, then their marriage and the rest of their life will be destroyed. It's not a 4-hour party where the step cousin is going to get drunk and probably say something he regrets later on tape. No, it is a idea that has been implanted in these young ladies' heads, and unless they have the perfect circumstances, they turn into a bridezilla. That's a term we invented as a culture, and it means that these girls become depressed because their 4-hour party didn't go as according to plan. Scale it up now to us as a culture, and it's not just the young ladies at prom or hoping to be betrothed in the perfect circumstances. It's men and women for their entire lives, indoctrinated into a culture through our own lived experience, living and growing up in the suburbs, seeing mom and dad, seeing the neighbors and family of a similar socioeconomic class, seeing it on the media, film, television shows, what is to expect in this life. And now you look up and realize that you're not earning $190,000 a year, which is a huge income. And unless you do, you can't just live an average life. It's not attainable. You could see how those factors would compound on someone and they could become depressed, which will now go and transition to what is happening. We've gotten distracted from what is the American dream, the upward mobility, the material aspect, which is unattainable, causing people to lose their minds. And what is the solution going to be? Well, watch the other hand of your government, which has purposely inflated your currency to the point where you cannot attain that material American dream. And what could be the other hand's intention? Well, we have a message from the Surgeon General of the United States. The Surgeon General says that parental stress is now a significant public health issue, like a pandemic. How do we handle pandemics in this country now that we have a proof of concept? Well, we have to eradicate the virus, right? Zero COVID was the message. What does the Surgeon General say? His name is Dr. Vivek Murthy. And while he is grateful to be a father, he does say that it is the toughest job he has ever taken on. And there's unique circumstances because we are such a navel gazing culture that doesn't have any sense of history or struggle or strife outside of our own daily lives, that we think that being parents now is uniquely difficult. Certainly, no one has ever been a parent before today. That's never happened before. There weren't people who put their kids on the Mayflower and crossed the ocean and entered a continent that had not been cultivated or settled. Certainly no families of 6, 8, or 10, because kids died at such a young age, went in a covered wagon and traversed the continental United States, knowing that multiple children were unlikely to make it because they died of typhoid along the way. No, today we have new and novel challenges like the internet. But what does the Surgeon General say? Well, we have to make some certain changes. What would those changes be? Well, more government, of course. Communism is always the solution to the problems that it causes. People are depressed. Half of parents, according to this Surgeon General's report, half can't get along with their day, just can't cope. This is the crisis we have to. So we have to have zero COVID, right? Well, he doesn't go that far, but he definitely moves the ball along that way and messages it. Well, we need more public housing. maybe some parental leave. Now, there's a saying that hard times make hard men make good times make soft men make hard times. We are on the cusp, if not already in the throes of very hard times. And the communist Surgeon General's solution is additional comfort. Let's just make you softer. Softer men will not get us out of hard times. And he stops short of what ultimately is the mission, and that is to distract you from the real American dream, and that's having a family. Now, what's the final argument in favor of the opposite? This comes from Fortune, which allegedly used to just talk about business and stuff, but now is a mouthpiece for the spirit of the age. Calling for more kids is a Ponzi scheme. Now, they invent a term because communists love to invent terminology. I know what prenatal means. I have children, and I remember prenatal care. But the new term is pronatalism, the pronatalism movement, which essentially means you want to have babies. Seems to be a good thing for the procreation, the continuation of the human race. But Fortune is very much against that. The pronatalism movement, according to Fortune, is based on the misguided belief that larger populations are necessary to drive economic growth. Apparently, you can grow while having less people to function in a society, per these experts over at Fortune. Seen this way, pronatalism is a Ponzi scheme. And they reference then Social Security. And that is a Ponzi scheme. You need more workers there to fund the retired workers. But how do you achieve that? By not having kids. Unfettered immigration. Now they make this case and they also try to play up the woe is the woman, even though they have the superpower of being able to grow babies inside them and then feed them. That seemed to be a struggle and a strife that should not befall any XX chromosome in our culture. So we are anti-family and we are pro-illegal immigration. We are pro-additional comfort in the face of a vertical, straight up trajectory of challenge in the very near future. Those are the solutions coming from the government because they are really opposed to the true American dream, and that is success in life by doing what humans have always done, regardless of economic conditions. And that's forming families and having bonds and having that experience and carrying forward a culture of people who are willing to do the right thing in the right way at the right time for the right reasons. We have to get back to that. That is the only way in light of the new status quo that is already fired. That round is already out of the chamber. We can't do anything about it. We can focus on this, though, and that is worth preserving. I want to thank you very much today for joining us on True Blue on Patriot TV, and we'll see you next time.